Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we have been discussing upon the fundamental rights for last few lectures. Alright. And basically you can say that in the previous lecture we had started the discussion over right to equality. Okay, right? And basically we had discussed these provisions which are the exception to the right to equality, general rule of non-discrimination. Okay, and we know that the non-discrimination is basically provided by Article 15, which comes under the right to equality. And we had discussed these provisions like the state having the right to make the special provision for women and children. All right. And basically, they could reserve the seats for women in local bodies and provision of free education for children. Thereafter, we had take this like there is a permission to the state to make any special provision for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes. Okay. And thereafter, we had seen that they could even maintain the reservation for the education institutions, and then we have seen this one. Okay, now basically we are going to check the reservation for OBCs in the educational institution. Why? Because if we talk about the exceptions to Article 15, if we talk about this, okay, and basically if we take the reservation part, so the reservation is basically provided for scheduled caste, for scheduled tribes, and then for economically weaker sections. Okay, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and economically weaker sections. All right, but if we talk about the OBCs, which is the short form of other backward classes. Okay, so basically the above exception was added by 93rd Amendment Act of 2005. Like prior to 2005, there was no provision for the reservation for OBCs in the educational institution, and that is further added by the 93rd Amendment Act of 2005. In order to give effect to this provision, the center enacted the Central Educational Institution Reservation in Admission Act 2006. So this becomes an important question from the examination point of view. Like first thing, the reservation part for the other backward classes was basically came into existence after the 93rd Amendment Act of 2005. And then we know the Central Educational Institution Reservation and Admissions Act was passed in 2006 so that the provisions of this amendment could be ensured, providing a quota of 27% for the candidates belonging to the other backward classes in all central higher education institutions, including the Indian Institutes of Technologies and the Indian Institutes of Management. It means IITs and IIMs. Okay. In April 2008, the Supreme Court upheld the validity of both the Amendment Act and the OBC Quota Act, but the court directed the central government to exclude the creamy layer, or you can say the advanced sections among the OBC while implementing the laws. Okay, so you can say the court generally said, okay, it's fine to give the reservation quota for the other backward classes for their welfare, but the creamy layer, or you can say the people who having the enough resources for themselves, this creaming layer must be excluded while providing the quota, so that the deprived ones or non-creamy layer would be benefited. Okay, it means that the deprived ones and a non-creamy layer will get a adequate chances to go to these institutes by using the reservation quota. All right. So, what is the creamy layer? So basically, the children of the following different categories of people belong to the creamy layer among OBCs and thus will not get the quota benefit. All right. Like first, the persons holding the constitutional post, like the president post, vice president post, judges of Supreme Courts and High Courts, chairman and the members of Union Public Service Commissions, State Public Service Commission, okay, Central Election Commission, Comptroller and Auditor General, and so on. It means that if any person holding any constitutional post like this ones, so his or her children's will be out of the quota part. Thereafter, the Group A, Class 1, and Group B, Class 2 officers of All India Services, Central Services, and the State Services, and the employees holding the equivalent post in the public sector units, banks, insurance organizations, universities, etc., are also in the private employment. It means that if any person belongs to these categories and even equivalent to this post in the private employment, so the children of his or her will not be admitted under the OBC quota. Thereafter, persons who are in the rank of colonel and above in the army and having the equivalent post in Navy, the Air Force, and the paramilitary forces. So, the children of them will not be treated under the OBC quota. Thereafter, the professionals like the doctors, lawyers, engineers, artists, author, consultants, and so on, the children of them will also not be treated under the reservation quota. Thereafter, the persons engaged in trade activities, business activities, and industrial activities, okay, and the people holding the agricultural land above a certain limit and non-agriculture or the vacant land or any building in the urban areas, but up to certain limit, okay, and the persons having the gross annual income of more than 8 lakh rupees or possessing wealth above the exception limit. In 1993, when the creamy layer ceiling was introduced, it was rupees 1 lakh. It means that the ceiling for the creamy layer was basically introduced in 1993. So if the family having the gross income above 1 lakh rupees, then they will be treated as a creamy layer. Thereafter, in 2005, that will become 2.5 lakhs. Thereafter, in 2008, that became 4.5 lakhs, and in 2013, that became 6 lakhs, and basically in 17, basically that became 8 lakh rupees. So that is the chart. Like when it was introduced in 1993, that was rupees 1 lakh. In 2004, that was 2 lakh 50,000. At 2008, that was 4 lakh 50,000. 2013, 6 lakhs, and 2017, 8 lakhs. Okay. Thereafter, after the reservation for the OBCs, now if we take a concept to the reservation for the EWS. Economically weaker sections. Okay. If we take the reservation part for them, so the above exception D was basically added by the 103rd Amendment Act of 2019. Okay. Like you can say, prior to this, there was a provision that if the state want, they could grant the quota for them. But basically, to make it in practical, the first step was taken in 2019 by passing the 103rd Amendment Act of 2019. In order to give effect to this provision, The central government basically issued an order in 2019, okay, and provided the 10% reservation to the EWS, known as the economical weaker section, in admission to the educational institutions. Okay, it means that those who does not having the adequate economic resources so that they could, you can say, live their life easily. So those persons or those students will get the admission to the educational institutions on the basis of 10%. Okay, and the benefit of this reservation can be availed by the persons who belong to the EWS who are not covered any of the existing schemes of reservation for STs, SCs, and OBCs. Like if the person is already covered under the SC, ST, and OBC, then the person is not entitled to take the help of EWS. So indirectly, the EWS is basically for the peer persons and the people who belong to the general class but do not having the sufficient resources. Okay. So the eligibility criteria laid down in this regard is as follows. So first thing is that the similar limit like it was in the creamy layer, like the person whose family has the gross annual income below 8 lakh are to be identified as EWS. Okay, like we know in the 2017, the limit was fixed at 8 lakh rupees. Prior to this, that was 6 lakhs in 2013. It was 4 lakh 3,000 in 2010. Thereafter, it was 2 lakh 3,000 in 2004, and that was only 1 lakh in 1993. But in 2017, it was at 8 lakh, and the act was passed. In 2019, right? So basically, for this, the latest creamy layer will be applicable. Okay. So the person whose family gross income is below 8 lakh rupees, he will be identified as a beneficiary of EWS. The income would include income from all sources. It means that whether the family is earning from salaries, whether they are earning from agriculture, whether they are earning from their business, any profession they are pursuing, etc. And it would be income for the financial year prior to the year of application. Always remember when we talk about the income or the income tax, so there are two provisions. AY or PY. Okay. So what are the meanings of AY or PY? AY stands out for assessment year, and PY stands for the previous year. Okay. So what's the meaning of them? If we talk about PY, so it is year in which income was generated. And if we talk about AY, year in which tax will be implied on the income. Okay. So that is the thing regarding the PY and the AY. So if we try to understand it, suppose this is an year of 2024, for example. Okay. And this is the month of March. Okay. So whatever income you had generated from January to March in the year of 2024, and this is the ongoing year. So this income will not be taxable right now at this moment. I'm not saying that it will not be taxable anytime. For now, okay, it won't be taxable. But the income which you had generated from 1st April 2022 till 2023 till 31st March 2024. That will be a financial year. Okay. So the income generated between this time frame will be taxable. Okay. So the 2023 will be the previous year in which the income was generated. Okay. And the 2024 would be the assessment year in which the tax will be assessed on the income. So similar thing will be applicable here. Okay. Like it would be income for the financial year prior to the year of application. It means that if you files the application in 2024, so what was your family income in 2023, that will be assessed to check out whether you are under the creamy layer or not. Got it? So that is the concept which is applicable in the income tax also, and that is the concept which is applicable in the EWS reservation also. Okay. Second case is the person whose family owns or possesses any one of the following assets are to be excluded from being identified as EWS irrespective of their family income. It means that if the family owns and possesses any of the following, which we are going to see, okay, so doesn't matter what is their income, whether below 8 lakh or above 8 lakh, doesn't matter. The person would be excluded from the EWS reservation. So first thing is that if the family having the agricultural land of 5 acres and above, thereafter, if the family having the residential flat of 1000 square feet and above, if the family having the residential plot of 100 square yards and above in the notified municipalities, if they have the residential plot of 200 square yards and above in the areas other than the notified municipalities. So it doesn't matter what is their family income, they will be excluded from the EWS reservation. The property held by a family in the different locations or different places, cities would be clubbed while applying the land or property holding test to determine the EW status. It means that suppose the person is right now in Delhi, but his family having the properties in Amritsar, okay, families in Pune, sorry, the properties in Pune, Hisar, all right, and you can say Lucknow. So what will happen? The entire property of Delhi, Amritsar, Pune, Hisar, Lucknow, the entire property will be clubbed. It doesn't mean that if he apply from Delhi, then the only Delhi property will be considered. No, entire property. Okay. Thereafter, the family for this purpose would include the person who seeks benefit of reservation and her parents and siblings below the age of 18 years, as also her spouse and children below the age of 18 years. Okay. Thereafter, after this, now we have the equality of opportunity in the public employment that is basically provided by Article 16. All right. So basically, if we talk about it, so the Article 16 provides for the equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters of employment or the appointment to any office under the state. Okay. It means that doesn't matter the person belongs to which religion, which race, which caste, which sex or gender, which descent, which place of birth or residence. Okay, he would be considered as equal with others while applying for the public services opportunities. Okay, here descent means the place. Like if we talk about someone is living in Punjab, someone is living in Haryana. Okay, someone is living in Karnataka, someone belongs to Bihar, and someone belongs to Mizoram. If we talk about this, then we know that all of them will have the different language and different descent while speaking. Okay, so just only basis of this thing, they could not be denied into the services admission for the civil services. Okay, but as we had discussed in the beginning, that the fundamental rights are not absolute but qualified. It means there must be some restrictions and the exceptions which could be provided. So similar thing happens here. Like there are 4 exceptions to this general rule of equality of opportunity in the public employment. The first is the parliament can prescribe residence as a condition for certain employment or appointment in a state or the union territory or local authority or other authority. Okay, like here we have seen that on the basis of place of birth or residence, no description could be maintained. If the person was born in Karnataka, then raised in Bihar and lives in Mizoram, then he could apply for the public opportunities in Punjab and Haryana as per the statement. But the Parliament of India is empowered to make the amendments or make the changes in the, you can say, the fundamental rights. So similar thing, they could do it here also. Like if the Parliament wants, then he could prescribe the residence as a necessary conditions while getting employed or appointed in a state, union territory, local authority or other authority. So for this, Public Employment Requirements as to Residence Act of 1957 was passed. Okay. But this was later get expired in the 1974 and there is no provision for any state except the Andhra Pradesh and the Telangana. Okay. So remember only these 2 states now having the residence conditions for their public employments. And the other states of the country do not possess any kind of, you can say, these restrictions. Okay. Thereafter, a state can provide for the reservation of appointments or posts in favor of any backward classes that is not adequately represented in the state services. Okay. So basically, if we talk about state public services, if the government finds out that particular caste or you can say particular backward class basically does not get any adequate representation in the state services, so what will happen, that the government is free to make the appointments and make the reservation for some post in favor of them so that they will get the adequate representation. Okay. Thereafter, a law can provide that the incumbent of an office related to the religious or the denomination institution or a member of its governing body should belong to the particular religion or the denomination. Okay. Suppose if there is any religion like XYZ. So if it is a matter of head to be appointed for such religious denomination or office of some religious denomination, then this is necessary that the person who is getting appointed there must be from that particular religion or the denomination. This could not be afforded if the person belong to the ABC and get appointed for the appointed for the office of religious denomination of XYZ. Okay, so that could not be done. All right. Thereafter, the state is permitted to make a provision for the reservation up to 10% of appointments or posts in favor of any economically weaker section of citizens. Reservation of up to 10% would be in addition to the existing reservation. For this purpose, the economically weaker sections would be notified by the state from time to time on the basis of their family income and other indicators of the economic disadvantage. Got it? After this, now we have the Mandal Commission. Mandal Commission and aftermath. In 1979, what happened? Like Morarji Desai government, okay, they appointed the second backward classes commission to examine their condition. And who was the chairman of this? The chairmanship of B.P. Mandal. Okay, so that's why this commission is often known as the Mandal Commission. But if we talk about the official name, then the official name was second backward classes commission. And B.P. Mandal was a member of parliament. Okay, and in terms of Article 40 of the Constitution, to investigate the conditions of the socially and educationally backward classes and suggest the measures for their advancement, he was appointed as the chairman of that particular commission. The commission basically, after getting appointed in 1979, submitted their report in 1980. Okay, and basically they identified 3,743 castes which were belonging to the category of socially and educationally backward classes. Okay, they constitute nearly 52% component of the population, excluding the scheduled caste SCs and the scheduled tribes STs. Okay, and the commission recommended after this the reservation of 27% government jobs for the OBCs or the other backward classes, so that the total reservation for all, like the SCs, STs and OBCs, amounts to 50.7%. Okay, so that was the thing. It was 10 years later, in 1990, what happened? Like the BP Singh government declared the reservation of 20% jobs for the OBCs, other backward classes. Okay, like that was basically proposed in the 1980 when the Morarji Desai government was there. Okay, but it was applied in 1990 when the VP Singh government was there. So remember this thing. During the Morarji Desai government, it was only proposed, but during the VP Singh government, that was implemented actually. And again, in 1991, there was a Narasimha Rao government. Okay, and the Narasimha government introduced the two changes in it. First, a preference to the poor sections among the OBCs in the 27% quota. It means that if we talk about the OBC population, so 27% quota is for them, but those who belonging to the poor section amongst the OBC will get the preference by the government. Therefore, adoption of economic criteria in granting reservation was there. Thereafter, reservation of another 10% of jobs for the poorer, economically backward section of higher caste who are not covered by any existing schemes of reservation. It means that if someone belongs to the high caste, but the person is not so economically strong, so these persons would be benefited under the reservation scheme if they are not mentioned and covered and protected by any existing schemes of reservation. So what happened? In famous Mandal case, 1992, the scope and extent of Article 16(4), which provides for the reservation of seats in favor of the backward classes, has been examined thoroughly by the Supreme Court, and though after the examination, the court has rejected the additional reservation of 10% for the poorer sections of the higher caste, upheld the constitutional validity of 27% for the reservation or reservation of OBCs with certain conditions. Okay, like the first modifications of the Narasimha Rao government was accepted by the court. Like it's okay if you want to give the 27% quota, and even if you want to give the preference to the economical weaker section, that is okay. But the another you can say 10% reservation which was proposed for the higher caste who do not get the adequate representation in the state services, okay, and does not covered under any existing schemes of the reservation. Then that particular provision was deleted and the Supreme Court said that it could not be done. All right. So students, basically in this lecture, we have done till here. In the next lecture, we will continue from here. Till then, just revise the facts and figures that all we have discussed in this lecture and be ready for the another lecture. And please remember one thing that I'm telling you here. You are required to connect the points together. All right. Why? Because as we go further in this lecture of the fundamental rights, the thing will be interconnected to each other. So if you are not revising them on the proper basis, you will get messed up. Okay. So with this note, let's end this lecture, and what we say thank you.